Are you ready? Hey, we are talking, the reason I want your phones away today is because first off, we have 3 different guests coming into class, and one of your classmates will be speaking, and we're talking about Ukraine and Russia and the war. And I'm calling this the People's War, and that should be, we'll have an explanation of that as we go along, especially with our last 2 guests. But let me just say, let me start with trying to explain this war as simplistically as I can, so that you have some kind of understanding in it. So it's really valuable if you pay close attention to what I'm saying right now. So Leah, can you go to the first slide? So look, after World War II, so starting in 1945, we just sort of broke it up into the what we call the so-called Democratic West and the so-called Communist East. And what was the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republic, of which Russia, what was currently called Russia today, was the main country, kind of took all this stuff in red, just kind of controlled. Now that's China, but China became a communist country, but not really aligned with the USSR, okay? And the West, meaning the United States, and then Western Europe, and the Western Hemisphere was all aligned with the U.S. We called it the democratic countries. Of course, they weren't all democratic, and I don't even know what democratic means. Many countries in Africa, but you see there were some countries, including Cuba here, Mozambique, and so on, that were really aligned with the USSR. And then the Russians, we say just the Russians, the Soviets wanted to rule the world according to their ideology, and we in the West wanted to rule the world according to our ideology. They accumulated lots of weapons, including nuclear weapons. We accumulated lots of weapons, including nuclear weapons, and it was really just kind of a face-off. And they were always trying to kind of get these countries that were aligned with us to align with them. And we were trying to get the countries that were, hang on, at the top, right? And we were trying to get the countries that were aligned with them to align with us, because it's really about power. Okay? So this was the geopolitics of the world. The blue states and the red states, right? This is the Cold War. All right, so go to the next slide. So here's 1990, before the Soviet Union broke up, which was right between 1989 and 1990. These were the countries of what would be the Soviet Union. And this actually should say Russia, but we just it was called the Soviet Union, right? So you see Poland, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, all these countries aligned here. And at the end of World War II, when the leaders who negotiated the truce and peace at the end of World War II, right? They just sort of divided Europe up in this way. This is 1990. It's a very powerful bloc of countries called the Eastern Bloc. And in 2015, all these countries started moving to the West and aligning themselves with the West and with NATO. So the countries that were formerly connected to the USSR, like Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Slovakia, Czech Republic, Romania, Bulgaria, they start aligning with the West. In Russia, the Soviet Union, which is now just really becomes Russia, becomes really weakened. So this really dominant country in the world becomes really weakened as all these critical countries align themselves with the West. And so Russia has the idea that this is Ukraine right here, one of the key states, here it is here, one of the key states has the idea, well, at least we're going to hang on to this one. And kind of the Western countries and NATO and the United States just kind of make this agreement in a way, and it's kind of stated, it's not stated. The Russians would say it was fully stated. We say, well, it wasn't really stated. We're going to let the Ukrainians decide for themselves. But the Russians have this idea that Ukraine, historically speaking, belongs to Russia. It is a part of Russia. If you go back far enough in time, it is in Russia. It is part of our nation. It's not a separate autonomous country, okay? In the West, we say, like, no, we're not going to go back that far. We're going to go back to a certain period of time. It's kind of like Israel and Palestine. And we're going to say, no, it's not. It's really its own separate autonomous nation. And so there's a battle over Ukraine. And in 2015, it really starts, right? It starts with Crimea, with this part of Ukraine that the Russians are saying, now we're going to take this little section of it, and then we're just going to keep going further, and we're going to take more until we control Ukraine. And we say, no, you're not. And so then we start fighting this, what's called a proxy war. Okay? Now, why is Ukraine important? Go to the next slide. Because this is Ukraine. In terms of all the nations in the world, Ukraine is fourth in terms of the total natural resources it controls in the world. It is a fabulously wealthy land area. And so the Ukrainians are saying, hey, look, man, we want to control all this. And Russia is saying, look, this is ours, and you can't take it away from us. And we're saying, hey, let the Ukrainian people decide for themselves what they want. And Russia says, but the Ukrainian people are Russian people. This is part of Russia. And when you take Ukraine away, you're actually taking all these resources away from us. And so there's a war going on because Russia took the next step and said, no, we're actually going to invade now. A little over a year ago, they said, so they invade, and now there's a battle for Ukraine. And the Ukrainians are responding. And it's a serious war, and it's very serious because Russia has a lot of nuclear weapons. And the West has a lot of nuclear weapons. And there's a lot at stake, not to mention the people of Ukraine and all these resources here. Okay? So, for me, go to the next slide. I have been in Ukraine. In fact, Lori, that's my wife there. She was invited to be a speaker at a NATO conference in which they were having a conversation with women soldiers. This is a people's war, you all, right? Men and women, civilians out on the front lines battling against the Russians. And so this was a photo that I took. And so we got a chance to really hear from Ukrainian people what they're thinking and what they wanted, right? And if you go to the next slide, and this is what is it's Maidan. You say Maidan or Maidan? What do you say for the square? What is it? Yemen? Maidan? Maidan? Yeah, Maidan. This is Maidan Square. It means Independence Square in Ukrainian, right? And this, Ukrainians had this democratic uprising, and the people just, to throw out one of the leaders that was really aligned with the Russians, and sort of did some secret backroom deals with the Russians to bring the Russians in. And that leader, the Ukrainian people just rose up against that. This is like in 2015, I think, or 2014. And so this square was just filled with people, and Ukrainians. What they did was the military, allying with this leader, put sharpshooters up here and started shooting at people from this hotel right there. And it's really eerie when you stand in this square, because Lori and I took this photo here. And then, of course, there are all these monuments and stuff to all the people that were killed, including just folks like yourselves, man, college students and so on. This was a soldier. So right down in here, in this area, there is all these photos and soldiers and statements about who they are. And so it's really intense. Okay? So today's class is about this issue. Go to the next slide. Let's do your quiz first off. And okay, her camera is going to be off. Okay. Hey, okay, so make sure so are we ready? This is good. It's not working? Julie. Julie, the passcode is 8787. What's that? All right. Hey, Julie, there's no question in it, so you have to fix this. We're going to do the second question is going to be the only question for the day, so you got to fix it. There's no question in Canvas today. Okay, we're going to do the ending quiz. All right, man. Okay, so you can bring us up right here. You can take that down. Hey, so listen. So everyone gets the story here, right? You see what it is. So we have one country. We have, hang on, follow me. Yo. So you got Russia. So the West, including the EU and NATO and the United States, is battling out with the Russians as to who controls Ukraine. And Russia is saying, we control it. And so they invade, they send their soldiers in, and it's now become just a brutal war. Okay? So the first person we're going to talk to is somebody in Russia. And you can unmute, by the way. This is Sasha. And Sasha is somebody who I met in St. Petersburg, Russia, a few years ago, who's going to tell us what Russian youth are thinking and what Russian youth are saying in Russia. But her camera is off because it's just not safe for her to be talking honestly and openly about what's going on in Russia, because the Russian government is being really hardcore about holding this down. So, hey, Sasha, are you there? Yeah, nice to. Can you turn the volume up? Hey, speak as loudly as you can. Hey, so how are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
Yeah, doing well. So your camera is off here, just so you know, it's clear. Hey, so tell us what Russian youth, young people, and this is college age folks, so we can kind of stick with college age, right? What are Russian young people saying about this war?
Actually, now young people who are located in Russia here, they're not really talkative about this topic. So, but maybe a year ago when the whole story has started, they were pretty strong, have pretty strong opinions against it. So, but for this year and a month, so the whole this whole opposing opinions were suppressed. So now there is more stigmatized. This topic is more stigmatized than it was before.
Mm-hmm. So the idea. So let me see if I be clear about this. So first off, across the world, young people especially tend to be against war. So I expect that Russian youth are no different than youth in the United States or any other country. Right? Am I right?
Yeah, definitely.
So so the question then is, and I think you spoke to this, but maybe say it again, like how often do you talk about the war with your friends?
Now, rarely than it was year ago.
Wait, not often, you say?
Yeah.
Because do you talk about it with your closest friends? Like,
Yeah. With closest friends, yes. When I'm like definitely sure that the environment is safe in many aspects of safety, so then we can speak. But like in every public space, there is no opportunity to speak about it.
so the idea is you have to make sure that the environment is really safe for you to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, those of you, I mean, some of you are from countries where this is true. It's not true in the United States, at this point in time anyway, not even close to it. Hey, so do you have stories of friends or people you know who have spoken about the war and they get in trouble?
Actually, unfortunately, no, but only like people who were on the protest, which they took place in the first like months in Russia. They were kind of arrested, but then they received like fee. So for this, so no, not more than it. But now the situation is like this here that most of the people who were against the war, they immigrated. So and who are, but those of people, young people who are against but still are here, usually they like just saving money to immigrate. So there's like this issue of leaving the country and then speak up openly and going to the protests, etc., etc.
So who is supporting the war? Like which people in Russia support the war?
Soviet people, like people older than 55 years, probably men, and people from like how to say, like poverty or something like this. So people who have nothing, no hopes for the future. So they're basically the basis of supporting them to yes.
So you said something really important there. People with no hope for the future, right? So people with hope for the future are obviously against the war. I mean, against everything, because it really hurts you. Your economy right now is really hurting, right?
Yes, but actually, maybe the more relevant for Russians is not the question of the economy, because we kind of get used to live in a crisis situation, but more the issue of relatives and friends from Ukraine, because those our nations are really connected, rooted, and this really like personal issue, not about like the economy from what I'm seeing.
Hey, well, listen. Thanks for talking to us. We're gonna now one of the students who's in the class is from Ukraine, and so so we're gonna talk with him and then continue to have a conversation. So listen, Sasha, thank you. Thanks for coming on, and stay safe, and be well, and we will talk. All right. Yeah, thank you. Bro. Hey, so can you introduce yourself? When you're talking, you want to turn that down. Yeah.
My name is Nestor, and I am a chemistry major, and I moved here from Ukraine around 9 years ago, and I started living here.
So how'd you get here? Like, why'd you come here?
So we moved around a lot, but like finally I moved here around like 9 years ago. I started going to middle school, and I knew a little bit of English, but it wasn't enough. Like people were talking to me, it just went in one ear into the other, and I didn't understand anything. So after a couple months, I was able to like slowly start talking, and I moved a couple of times.
So you're here. Your parents are here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my parents are here. It's just my grandma, my immediate family is here. The rest of my family is in Ukraine.
And they're in Kyiv or?
Lviv.
Yeah?
Lviv, it's a western
Lviv,
part near
yeah.
Poland.
Hey, so I want to show you a couple things. In your next slide, you mentioned this pasanki. You mentioned these eggs in your piece. Like you said that there are just a lot of things that you miss about your culture, right? Can you just say what these are? Because we're coming up on the.
So pisanka, during Easter, it's like a tradition where people gather and start drawing different designs like those by using paint and wax. So first you dip your dye egg. You choose a color, you dip it in a dye, and then you start drawing whatever you want using the wax. And then once you don't want that color no more, you hold it to a fire, and then that wax goes away, and that color stays, and you keep dipping the egg into different types of dyes and make different types of designs like those.
And you do this at Easter.
Yeah.
It's cool, man. They're really cool. Yeah, I mean, they're beautiful. It's a thing. Like in the West, here in the U.S., we dye Easter eggs, but nothing like that. Hey, and what I want to say is, can you go to the next slide? So this is St. Michael's, is that right? In Kyiv? It's like, this is the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, right? Connected to the Greek Orthodox and Russian Orthodox Church. But like, it's just, so you are Ukrainian, are you Ukrainian Orthodox?
Yes, I am.
Yeah? What's your core belief?
I believe in God, and it's similar to Orthodox. And
Yeah. How do you guys feel about that like, no, hang on, I have a lot of questions. What I will say is, it was really intense. Like this church was built 1,000 years ago, right? The original structure. It's really intense going into a lot of the churches there.
yeah, a lot of the cities in Ukraine are super old architecture.
Yeah.
And once the war started, they like send missiles, they destroy really old architecture that was built like really long time ago, and they don't care no matter what. They destroy everything. And
So you're talking about the
Yeah, I'm
Russians
talking
in the
about
war.
the Russians.
Yeah, like when you destroy, this has not been destroyed. I think it is not been bombed. But when you bomb buildings like that, first off, it's a crime against humanity. It's a crime against the Geneva Conventions on the Conduct of War. That you can't bomb civilian targets in this way. But it happens.
Yeah, there's especially like at the beginning of the war, I seen a story where they wrote like really big letters on the floor saying there's kids and families in this building, don't bomb it. And guess what they did? They bombed that building, and a lot of people died. The Russian army, they don't care.
But when we say they, though, what's really important
Russian
is...
army.
Yeah, no, exactly. And even the Russian army, there were a lot of soldiers who have to go fight. Like, they don't want to go fight. And so you have so many
they're
people...
forced to. And if they don't, they get threatened.
Yeah.
A lot of them don't want to, some do. I personally don't know, that's what I believe.
Yeah. No, and human beings are human beings around the world, right? That's why I wanted to start by having you meet Sasha for a moment, to understand that these aren't like... And unfortunately, you couldn't see Sasha, but like it's really important that this is what life is. Hey, so speaking of that, so next slide. So this is your grandmother, right?
Yeah.
Who's back? She's back home. And what's interesting, what you said, and this goes to bombing civilian targets, because this is a wood stove that she just installed in her house.
Yeah, it was recently. So since like the power went out a lot, and sometimes there was no heat. If there's no power, you cannot heat up the house. So during winter, it was like getting cold.
Yeah.
Whenever they hit the electrical stations, the power went out. So recently they had to install a furnace in the house, so just to heat up the house just in case if the power goes down.
So this is one of the things about war that people, and I asked him for a photo of his grandmother and and he sent this stove also, because this is the kind of stuff in war that we don't think about. This is the everyday part of a war, and the ways in which our human lives. It's not, when we think about war, how many people die, how many people are wounded. We don't think about the psychological trauma. We don't think about these little tiny simple things, like when the country, and now mind you, we in the United States bomb civilian infrastructure in Iraq, and we bomb civilian infrastructure in lots of places where we have invaded. Okay, so this is not like, in what the Russians are doing in Ukraine, we have done that in other countries. Okay, so this is not just like the Russians are bad and we're all good, all the rest of us. So, we do that. And then, the Iraqis have to go out and buy wood stoves or buy some way to maintain their lives. But this was just one, I think, with your grandma that's really provocative.
Yeah, besides soldiers, like fathers have to leave their families to go to war. And I have my cousin that is worried about my uncle. We're going to see shortly a short video. I'm going to translate what he said. But a lot of families have their fathers, brothers go to war, and they have to worry about them not dying. And
Dude, their mothers and their sisters.
They're not just...
Yeah. That's what's also so really notable. Here, so let's do that video. So this video, this is your uncle, right?
Yeah.
So listen, hang on. I want to say, hey, go back to the beginning first off. Do you have volume? See if you can get volume. Although we don't need volume for the first. Okay, hang on. Pause it. So this is Nestor. This is Nestor's uncle. Nestor's uncle, he's a performer, right?
Yeah, so whenever he retired, he became an actor, but he served in the military for most of his life. He mentions it in a video from 1991 to 2017. He served in the military and retired. And after he decided, after the army, to pursue his childhood dreams, which he became an actor.
So his name's Roman, right?
Roman.
Yeah. So listen, can you say what he's saying in the video? We're going to keep the volume off because that way we can put it on the stream without getting kicked off. What's he saying in this? Oh, you know what he's saying? Yeah.
What he said. So basically, in this video, he just started talking about what I just mentioned, that he served since 1991 till 2017, and then he retired. After he retired, he decided to become an actor because he always dreamed of becoming an actor. And he also mentions that whatever you dream of, you're able to pursue it as long as you put in the work.
And so this is like him in a... Yeah.
And he became a main actor for this theater show that that he acted in. He was a main actor. And then after...
Go ahead. Oh, wait, go ahead. Turn it back up, yeah. Turn it up a little bit.
So after he retired, he also became a singer for Odessa band. It's one of famous bands in Ukraine. And then everything's going real well, and then here comes the war, and now he has to go back and serve. And here's him cheering up the people in the basement, hiding from the... Like overnight, he sang for them and played songs to cheer up the soldiers.
And so that's like him in the trenches, right, with other soldiers, and saying, and singing, and like bringing up morale and stuff. I mean, it's intense. So the idea here is that in the United States, you know, a lot of people who are really into guns, and they have this idea, you know, a lot of people, we're going to have guns and we're going to protect ourselves, and if we ever get invaded, we'll have guns and we'll all go out and start these militia armies and we'll do whatever we have to do, right, to protect the land and ourselves and our homes and so on. That's what's going on in Ukraine. And this is like people are just jumping in. People who were soldiers, people who are not soldiers, people who have never been trained, people who have never held a gun before, have no idea, never shot a gun before, are getting weapons and going out and fighting in this war. And all of this is just happening, just ongoing, right? So I think that short video with your uncle is one of these examples, like, damn, man, how this really just takes over. Hey, can we bring Taras in? Yeah. Is he on? Ask him to put his camera on.
Можете включити відео, ми вас зараз не чуємо. І ми зараз хочемо. Так.
Yeah.
Це
So
добре.
tell him, Taras, does he speak any English?
Ви англійську чуть-чуть розумієте чи зовсім нічого?
No. Okay, tell him welcome to Soch 119.
Він вас запрошує до нашого класу.
Доброго вечора.
Yeah.
Доброго вечора викладачам,
Yeah.
студентам. Радий
Hey.
вас бачити. Вітання з України.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead. Ask him, here's my first question. What is he fighting? What is he fighting for? In his words, right?
він питає вас, за що Україна б'ється за головне.
And tell him to give you short answers so you can translate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Говоріть пару речень, щоб я міг перекласти.
By the way, hang on. This is a family friend. He's in Ukraine right now. Okay, so we are, all right, go ahead.
За що Україна б'ється саме найголовніше? І говоріть по пару речень, щоб я міг перекласти.
Я
Небагато
зрозумів.
навіть.
Ну, по-перше, війна почалася, Росія почала війну у 2014 році, захопивши Крим і частину Донецької і Луганської області.
First of all, the war began in 2014, and Russia took over parts of Donetsk and Luhansk region.
Минулому році, 23 лютого, ця війна перейшла в повномасштабну війну. Росія хоче захопити, повернути ту територію, яка була при Радянському Союзі. Тобто повернути всіх українців той стан, який був раніше. Тобто в них імперські амбіції.
So last year, the war began fully in February 24th, 2022, last year. And the main goal, which we already mentioned, he said that they want to bring Ukraine back to the old Soviet standards of their beliefs that they had before.
І Україна бореться для того, щоб за свою територію, щоб ми вернули ту територію, яку ми мали до 2014 року. І ту, яку нам гарантували, це Будапештський меморандум нам гарантував безпеку, тобто безпеку наших територій. І продовжуємо.
So the main part of Ukrainians fighting back is for the freedom of Ukrainians and take back all the
Territory. Yeah.
that they took over in 2014. They want it back, and also fighting so civilians don't have to worry about anything else and be in freedom.
Ми боремося за свою незалежність, щоб бути незалежні від Росії і вести розвиток розвиток країни так демократичним шляхом, а не таким шляхом, як хоче Росія.
And also, they're fighting for their independence from Russia, so Ukraine could pursue their own path away and not being controlled by any of the Russians. Continue to develop as a country, as a democratic country.
Tell him I have it. Okay, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Він каже, продовжуйте, як ви щось маєте сказати.
Ну, як відносно мене, я жив при Радянському Союзі, і я розумію, що таке режим Радянського Союзу. Це є закрита система, це є напівправда, часто дуже неправда. І в такій системі більшість українського народу не хочуть жити.
He said he personally lived during USSR, and he noticed that not just him, but everyone around in Ukraine did not want to live in terms of the Russian ruling that they want to impose right now.
So he wants to be aligned with the West.
Yeah.
Yep. Hey, so I have a question. Tell him I have a question for
Він
him.
зараз питає інше питання у вас.
So the title of this class is The People's War. Okay? And tell him that.
Він назвав цей клас «Битва за людей».
Because so many Ukrainian citizens are fighting in the war. Yeah.
Бо багато українців б'ються за українське незалежність.
So many civilians are volunteering and people are risking their lives in order to defend Ukraine.
Багато людей своє життя ставлять на лінію, щоб захистити Україну.
So how is that for him? How is that? How does he feel about that?
Як ви думаєте про це, що українці своє життя ставлять на лінію, щоб захистити Україну?
Я думаю, що ми всі це розуміємо, що це є війна на знищення українського народу. І в нас інакшого шансу, як тільки стояти до кінця, немає. Ці все прекрасно розуміють. І тому, в тому числі і я, весь український народ, це прекрасно розуміє, і ми будемо стояти до кінця, поки не буде звільнена вся територія України.
So he said that Ukrainians are gonna fight till the end because they don't have a choice. If they don't fight back Ukrainian culture, everything will go away. So even it is hard for him to see everyone go in the front lines, but we will keep going till the end, till the war's over.
Is there, okay, another question.
Нове питання вас питаю.
So when it seems that it is rare in the world, in my understanding of history of the world, to see civilians fighting against soldiers. Yeah. And how, man, like, where is his, so like this is a war being fought by by all Ukrainians, yeah? So, okay, so the question is, so who supports Russia in Ukraine?
Він питає, хто за Росію в Україні, чи всі українці проти Росії?
Ну, переважна більшість людей, які симпатизували Росії до війни, зараз на даний момент є проти Росії. Вони побачили, як російська армія воює з дітьми, жінками, як вони б'ють. Вони побачили Маріуполь, побачили Бучу. І багатьох людей, які симпатизували на сході Росії, думка змінилася в протилежну сторону. Це ми бачимо по переселенцям, які приїхали до Львова.
He mentioned that majority of Ukrainians that did support Russia before the war, after noticing the horrendous things that they do to children, torture, there's much more. Most of those people started not support Russia.
Turning against
Yeah,
Russia.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
because they saw the horrendous things they doing, destroying everything.
Yeah. Mhm. So here's my next question then.
Наступне питання.
Most people do not experience war directly. Okay? You can say that.
Багато людей не живуть під час війни.
And very few of my students have ever experienced war directly.
Мало моїх студентів жили під час війни теж.
Can you say a few words about what war is really like to live through?
Можете сказати пару слів, як жити під час війни для вас? Як вам тяжко?
Ну, в даний момент це був, скажімо так, це був перший тиждень, це була така паніка, думаю, ну, це як виглядало, як в кіно, показують про початок якогось, не про початок війни. Тобто це були черги в магазинах за хлібом, ну, скажімо так, люди не знали, як далі рухатися.
So whenever the war started, it was a huge shock for Ukrainians because it just looked like a movie, something you would see in a movie. And a lot of people started panicking. There would be huge lines of trying to get food. And the first few weeks were the hardest, trying to adjust. You're in war. Any second, a missile could fly and hit your building, kill your family, friends.
Ну, не вірили в це, що ця війна перейде в повномасштабну війну.
People, especially him, he did not believe it would be a full-on war that would occur.
Я розумів, по крайній мірі, що в Росії дуже багато зброї, тому що зброя, яка лишилася після Радянського Союзу, хоч вона не є дуже ефективна, але її дуже багато. І знаючи, як воює Росія, це було страшно. У нас знищує всі міста, і знищує, ну, правильно сказати, веде не точно війну, веде війну з жінками, веде війну з мирними жителями. І це просто війна, що йде на знищення, це теж прекрасно розумів.
Можете повторити про зброю? Я не знаю, як перекласти їм.
Ну, про зброю, що великий запас зброї, який залишився в Росії ще у спадок від Радянського Союзу. Ні, в Росії.
Okay.
В Росії величезна кількість зброї.
USSR have a huge stock of weapons that they have.
Hold it close.
A huge stock of weapons that left over in Russia, and they have a lot of ammunition to fight against Ukraine. And Ukrainians at first did not have much ammunition to fight back. Thankfully, because of nations around the world starting provide weapons to defend themselves, they're able to slowly fight back.
Тиждень це було трохи паніки, але пізніше, коли ми побачили, що Західна Європа, потім Сполучені Штати Америки висунули підтримку українському народу, за що ми вам дуже вдячні. американському народу вдячні вашому президенту Джо Байдену. І наш народ, це вселило якусь таку надію, що ми не одні, і в нас появилася віра і надія, що ми вистоїмо в цій нелегкій війні.
He said that, of course, the first couple weeks of the war, it was a shock for Ukrainians, but after seeing that U.S. and a lot of countries in the West started providing weapons, they gave hope to Ukrainians and have the ability to fight back. And he also want to thank all the Americans and anyone that helping out Ukraine fight this brutal war.
Yeah. Hey, Taras, yeah, thank you for joining us today.
Він сказав дякую, що ви приєдналися з нами сьогодні. Thank you, you guys.
За нами перемога. Дякую вам, шановні.
We're gonna win the war.
Yeah, I think too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Hey, so while we wait for our next guest to come on, what's one thing that Ukraine has that Russia doesn't have? Like culturally speaking, what's something about Ukrainian culture that that's different from Russian culture? Just something, like what do you have? Because Russians probably paint eggs too. Like what do you have that's?
I feel like the main thing is the spirit of Ukrainians.
The spirit?
Yeah, as we could see, not just soldiers were brave, even grandmas were brave. There's one video where a soldier was occupying their country, Ukraine. She came up to them like saying "F off, leave the country." It's a grandma with no weapons came up to a tank saying "F off," and I'm just saying the bravery of Ukrainians and the ability to fight back with their bravery.
Yeah. Hey, can you put the next slide up? This is a piece about the People's War. So when we were in Kyiv, there were just civilians all over the city making things for the war. And what they're doing here are making these protective nets that they can put over armored vehicles and tanks and so on, so that the Russian drones or Russian airplanes can't see them. It's just camouflage, basically. And they're just making so many hundreds and thousands of square yards or square meters of this stuff. And so there's people all over these squares, and we took this photo. Next slide. So look, I want to introduce you to the next guest, and you won't have to translate for her. You can just sit up here, though. And this is Kamilia. I've been working with Kamilia for, I don't know, maybe 8 years. I think we met 7 or 8 years ago. But I circled her shoes because she's always wearing cool sneaks. And she works at the War Studies University in Warsaw. And I just feel like it's really good to hear from her for a number of reasons. Not the least of which she's Kamilia and super insightful, but you'll understand as we go along. This was us. This was a photo. We had a meeting at NATO headquarters, I think, on this, and this is a group of us in the square. And can you, hey Kamilia, can you hear me? You can come on. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, nice to see you. Wait, hang on, we can't hear you. Wait. Try again. Try your audio. Hang on 1 second. There we go. Try it again.
Okay, how about now?
Yeah, we gotcha. Hey, welcome.
Brilliant.
Yeah, welcome. Hey,
Hey.
man, so let me ask you a couple. First off, thanks for joining us. Obviously, it's late there, but nice seeing you again. How are you doing, by the way? Let's just start with you.
Oh boy, what to start with? I mean, it has been a year, you know. A year ago, actually, I was in your class, and it was only a month after, on February 24th, my husband just woke me up because, yeah, you know, I'm Polish, and my husband is Ukrainian. He's in the Ukrainian army, and he has been living in Poland for 2 years. He was released from the military, and on February 24th, he woke me up and he said, "It started, I'm going." So yeah, as a, just like, you know, out of many things, I'm also a military wife. So to me, it was obvious. Bring souvenirs.
Yeah.
And yeah, so, and to me, like, you know, looking at this conflict, I'm in the middle. I'm somewhere between Taras and the folks that are fighting, that are in the field, and between my family that is actually still living there. Like, you know, my husband's daughter with a small child is staying there, although she could immigrate. And I'm looking at this conflict also from a point of view of somebody who's taking care of the family while the guys are doing their job.
Yeah.
And
Let me ask you about that. First off, is he in Ukraine right now?
yes, of course.
Has he been back at all since the war started?
Only once, but only because there was this, like, you know, one of the official, yeah, but something happened in Poland related to the war, and he was actually sent here officially. So we've seen each other briefly, but there is no chance otherwise, simply because the guys aren't let out and they're needed there. And
And what do you tell your children? Like, what do you tell them about the war? Right? Wait, how old are they?
5, 9, and 18.
What do you tell them? What do you tell the 5-year-old about where your husband is? Like, what do you say? Like, how do you deal with that as a mom?
Oh boy. With my youngest daughter, it's most heartbreaking because she is asking every day for this year and a month. She has been asking every day, "Where is Daddy? When is he coming back?" And luckily, we are in touch, so she knows she can talk to him, and it's great. But it's constant in our household that she always asks where he is, and it breaks my heart. So, but yeah, we're always just, you know, she knows that it's difficult, that there are children there that are suffering, that there are many people there that are suffering, and Dad went there simply to help them. He's fighting for them, and once he's done with the job, he's gonna come back home. And it seems to, it seems to be working for now, although it is difficult. And my older daughter, at the beginning of the war, we had some family of my husband coming over, and they were running away. And they were and they had a daughter at the age of my daughter, and they came here in a really terrible condition. And the girls were talking about what the girl from the Ukraine saw there. And my daughter she was crushed. She couldn't eat or sleep, and she kept on asking me, "Mom, how is that possible that things like this happen, and they happen so close, and they happen now?" How she, before the war, she didn't know what people are capable of. So
This
yeah,
is-
we're on it, and we also consulted a psychologist on how best to talk to the children of war, and she said that it's best to be open, honest, calm, and composed about it, but still just, keep your hand on the pulse, because it's difficult.
Yeah, I really felt that. I felt for when you said something right there, I just felt the tears immediately in my eyes. I'm going to stay with your children for a moment. They can't get away from it, right? I mean, the images are there, right? They're in the media. People are talking about it because
Constantly.
this is Poland. This isn't like, the United States or South Korea or something. This is Poland. You're right next door. You have so many Ukrainian refugees. The stories, the images are there constantly, right? So I feel that. Tell me, so one of the things that is really difficult for us to understand, so Poland is right next to Ukraine, and so probably you've received more refugees from Ukraine than any other country, right?
Yeah.
Think about that. How is that? To have, I think it's there's something I have some numbers up on the screen, over 8 million refugees from Poland, and from Ukraine, and a huge number of those are. What's that? Could you just say something sociologically about that?
Of course. Yeah, honestly, before the war, even before 2014, when the whole war started, exactly as Tara said, because it's nothing new, it's very medial right now, but it started in 2014. So we had, even before 2014, we had a lot of Ukrainians working in Poland due to just, cultural proximity and geographical proximity, and simply, it was a good place to work for them. And also our society is pretty open to Ukrainian, people working here and living here. So yeah, so we had them anyway. And when the war broke out, it was during the first couple of weeks, there were immense numbers. There were weeks when there were 100,000 of people going through the border. And the recent estimates, because I also, Sam, I checked today, the recent estimates are that there were 10 million of refugees that went through the Ukrainian-Polish border. Some of them went on to Europe. 8 million actually did return to Ukraine because, the most of the fighting is going on in the east. However, there are bombings and shellings all the time in the whole country. So that Kiev, Lviv, you're not safe anywhere. So yeah, and at the very beginning, our people were and even until now, at the very beginning, everybody that I know was helping. People were, it was really so heartwarming, so amazing to see people just, taking cars, going to the border, helping out the people, taking them for free everywhere. Businesses offered services for free, like taxis, hotels. And of course, in every shop, there was and there is a point of collection for food or clothes or sanitary stuff for the refugees. And it is, if I could, it is pretty amazing because I don't know actually anybody from my, from the university, any institution, or anybody from my friends or even acquaintances who wouldn't have for some time a Ukrainian family at home.
That is that's what I was going to say. I think that it's so striking. We see the worst of humanity and we see the best of humanity, right? And I think that, we see what the really inhumane things that have happened in this conflict, as we see with all war. I mean, that's the nature of war.
Sure.
But we also we're just seeing the response to people that is really uplifting and heartwarming in this way. And I think that it's really good, for my students to hear that, because sometimes, we just focus on the negative and we don't focus on the positive. And I think that, hey, do you have any question? You were watching the stream, so you saw Nestor here. Do you have any questions for him by chance? Or do you have a question for Kamilia? Did we talk about anything, Kamilia, that you just thought like, hey, I'd like to hear more about that, or I'm curious about it?
If I may, concerning Nestor, I wonder, oh man, how do you feel being also in the middle? I mean, somewhere in between the worlds, because this is where most of us are, in the Middle Earth.
What's that for you?
Well, whenever war started, I was in high school, and every day during classes, I turned on the stream and I just watched nonstop news for a couple months. After it basically consumed my life, because I have family and friends there, and I'm worried, will my city get bombed? Will my country get fully destroyed? And at the beginning of the war, they said in just 2 weeks they will take over Ukraine, and now we're a year later, and Ukraine is still staying strong.
And so tell the story, though, of you raising money for body armor for people. Kamilia, this is an interesting story.
Yeah, sure.
So it wasn't me particularly, but I did help out a little. It was mainly my sister and her husband. So around Pittsburgh, he had a friend that was a policeman, and he asked the policeman if he could ask all the police stations if they are able to donate any body armor. So they reached out to all the stations, and a lot of them were willing to give out some body armor, and in a couple weeks they were able to collect over $10,000 worth of body armor. It was 3 trucks filled of not trucks, jeeps filled with body armor, and they sent it to New York, where they send it to Ukraine.
Yeah, it's intense, man. It's intense just thinking. It's like Kamilia with you, thinking every day with it's not just your husband. You're connected to so many Ukrainians, right? Just like Nestor here, and we have other students in class who have gone through this with family members, and it's heartbreaking, really, to be thinking about it all the time. Yeah.
It is. And Sam, the thing is that oh my God, apart from the fact that I have family there, my husband is there, and I am also teaching about this conflict, and I'm teaching, I'm an anthropologist. And I use your radical experiment in empathy a lot with my students. And recently, it was actually, and I'm teaching them about Russian strategic culture. I'm teaching them to understand why Russia is behaving the way they are, why Russian people are behaving the way they are. And, when we are doing the radical experiment in empathy, it's I had one Ukrainian student that did that, and it was we understand them. The most, schizophrenic thing in being schizophrenic, maybe a little bit in being an anthropologist and at the same time engaged in that conflict emotionally, is that you do understand. And
key.
Yeah, and and the sad thing is that understanding where they are coming from does not change the fact that the genocide that is going on in there, the atrocities, that it's unthinkable what is going on in there in the humanitarian dimension. But I was thinking about it today, and to me, what you're doing there in that class, looking at the human dimension, first of all, is amazing because it is, I think, Svetlana Alexievich that wrote that when you are looking at the human dimension, at the chronicles of the soul at war, you are touching the very great mystery of life itself.
Yeah, I think that's really it's the mystery of life itself. Yeah. And I think in the end, the reason I wanted to start out today's class with Sasha is because it's important for us to hear from someone who's on the other side, even though Sasha doesn't support what her government is doing, but she still is a Russian citizen. And so always citizens become like these people who at some level are responsible or have to take the responsibility of things that their government does. Hey, Kamilia, thank you. Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. It's lovely seeing you. And yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Sam. It was really, really great to see you. And now, what can I say? Slava Ukraini!
Yeah, we
Geraim
will.
slava.
Yeah, we will talk soon for sure. And Lori and I we think about you all the time, and your husband and your family, your kids. So yeah, so thank you. Yeah. Hey, bro, thanks for talking to us today. Really appreciate it. It's a lot, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's big. And maybe, like for you all, when you turn on the news or see something about Ukraine, maybe, because of this class, the goal is you'll take an extra minute or two and just read, or 5 or 10 or a half hour and just read something, because you'll have something to hang your thoughts on. So, yeah, thanks, bro. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man.